Okay, folks, good morning. Happy Saturday to you. We'll pick up right where we left off, which is working on these little Soviet trucks from Plastic Soldier Company. They come in packs of 6 of them. And we get the basing already ready for them once we get the rest of the truck done. So what I like to do is finish the truck up and then seal them and then worry about gluing them on the base. So we're going to do windows. That's what we're going to do next. Let's get our usual suspect colors out here. I don't use a wet palette for something this small. It's just not worth it. A wet palette takes up... I might actually look into getting a smaller wet palette. It's just too big for doing something like this. It takes up too much real estate when I'm using such little amount of paint. This can go back. And... there we go. That's too fine of a brush. Don't want to use the brushes that are really exclusive to be able to do a lot of really detailed content and then waste their services and their misshapenness on something that is unnecessary. And save those for what you need. See, what is it? 6:20 a.m.? Okay. I gotta go wake somebody up if they're not already awake in about just a little over an hour. So. I'm going to do one of these and see if I'm happy with it. Just painted it all dark gray for a base. It's going to be stylized, but not super cartoony. All right, let me take a look at something because I certainly have done. I want them to be consistent with kind of the look of the headlamps. We've got here Jacques Slabber, welcome. Nordic. You haven't gone to bed? Wow. Yeah, these ugly little trucks are looking pretty good. And they are unattractive trucks, in my opinion. This is something just about, there's some things that are pretty much constants. Just about everybody's going to agree these are inattractive trucks. Um, I subscribe. I subscribe to a Facebook page which somebody recommended to me, and sometimes has some really interesting posts on there. And the post is the name of the group is called something like history shit posting, and it's just people trash talking about history and stuff. And sometimes there's some funny inappropriate shit on there that I find humorous. And somebody overnight posted something about England sucking, and it had pictures of different things. It had their breakfast, a little cup of tea. It had like some English knights in a castle, and the last one they had a Spitfire. And I'm like, I don't know anybody who doesn't like the Spitfire. You could trash to everything else, but a Spitfire, really? Bit of insomnia. Well, hopefully you're not in pain, man. Insomnia is better than pain unless it's driving you crazy. Which I have been there before. I have, I've had to try to get up. I know I'm going to get up early, and I got to get to bed so I can get up early, and it's driving me crazy figuring out how to make it happen. This is what I had done in the past. I think I've done a window, and it was similar to the flame. I don't play Flames of War, but there's some pretty good ideas on Flames of War. Let me pull up this quad tractor. And this particular person, this is on a Flames of War site. He had painted almost like a boy. The name escapes me what it is. It's basically like a horizon. There we go. All right, more coffee. That's why you shouldn't do drugs, folks. If this happens to you when you're drug free, imagine a horizon there with the blue, but I think the blue is a little too vivid. I do like painting some of these unusual things, and I would call Soviet trucks unusual. It's not like, you see a million different things. I tell you what, I'm going to do my own take on that. I'm just not going to use so much blue in it because there's not blue in the headlights. And just see how that works. We're going to add a little bit, but not crazy like that. What's the lightest one I got? This one. Trashing Spitfire is sacrilege, pretty much. I mean, there's some versions of the Spitfire that are better looking than the other ones. I happen to like the ones with the 20 millimeter cannon sticking out of the wings. And I like planes that have roundels, whether it was a French roundel or a British roundel. You're already crazy beforehand. I think we all are to some degree or another. A couple of painters on that site. Be right back. Need to get something from the other room. Okay. You'll be right back. right, let's mix up a little bit. That's what I do want. I don't want to get done with all of them and be like, man, I wish I had done something different. Let's take that same gray color. We're going to mix this light blue in it. And then we'll do this again. This won't be the final color. Let's add a little bit more. "29 degrees here." It is. It's gonna warm up to like freaking 72 or some bullshit here. We've had highs in like the low 60s, so it hasn't been too bad. 53 here right now. And this is as warm as it's been all week. Justin's back. Just finished my Spanish. No, I don't take responsibility for the Spanish after they put a French king on the throne. that's when things are just falling apart for the Spanish. The temp has been up and down like it's going out of style. Yep. Sinus headache. I woke up yesterday with, I've been taking vitamin C every day because I don't want to get sick on a trip. I don't want to get a cold. Let's put it that way. Colds that have always been around. And so I've been taking emergency shit just in case to prevent. I woke up yesterday with not what I usually call pepper throat. Pepper throat is you got the sinus strip in the back of your throat and you feel like it's scratchy and you're thirsty all day long, but you're not really thirsty. And it wasn't like that. It was kind of more isolated. And I think it was allergies because I took a Claritin and it went away. But I need to stay healthy because we need to share. The three of us are going up there and we plan on sharing drinks. My daughter's excited going up to Canada because it's the drinking age is 18. And she'll be able to sit at the bar and, It's not about getting trashed or even getting a buzz, but just being able to partake in everything, you know. So, oh, this is gonna look good. I think. I think. Let me not run my mouth. You know, the thing is I'm not worried about this shit. It's just I'd like to get it right the first time because it saves time. It's not like I can't fix it or modify it. That's why I'm doing one. But I don't think I want to make it very bluish because the headlights aren't very bluish. And I'm thinking it should have the consistent color. You know, if you're going to make the headlights bluish, then this should be bluish. Well, this year's almost over with. So did everybody meet their resolutions? Don't even make any, right? Uh oh. Let's see what we got here. Comrades against party policy to insult glorious Soviet trucks. I've been fighting off the cold last few days. 79 degrees Fahrenheit with 70% humidity today. Port Elizabeth, South Africa. Wow. Well, it's almost always 70% humidity here, but I don't want 79 degrees. We're in Canada. We're going to fly into Calgary and we're going to go to Banff. So, North America, Switzerland. I suspect I'll like Canada. And what I mean by like Canada, to visit again. I don't want to live anywhere other than here. I'm a spoiled American. I spoiled American. I can't wait to talk about the differences that I see between the two countries. I don't think there's going to be that many. I think it's going to be like, I think it's going to be the equivalent of like when I went to Puerto Rico and it seems like it's Miami. It's just going to seem like somewhere. You know, if I go to a place like Connecticut, it's significantly different than Florida. So I suspect it's going to be something like that. I don't plan on exchanging any money into their money since I basically run debit cards anyways. So the battle for Salerno has gone from bad to hellish for the Germans. 16th Panzer Division had been removed entirely and it just left a gap hole in the defensive position, and now they lost Salerno and are in the process of being isolated in several areas and destroyed by the Allies. You know, as you get older, you start forgetting shit. And you know, it's not stuff that's important, it's stuff that isn't important. So when you mention Salerno, you know, I'm not read up on the Italian theater to a massive degree. But you said Salerno, and the first thing I'm thinking of is the first thing I thought of is that in Italy? In Sicily? And I'm like, no, no, it's not. No. That's the original landings on the boot of Italy. And then they landed at Anzio later, right? To try to, or was it the other way around? I don't know. Anzio was in 44, Salerno's in 43. Salerno's like September 43, right? You know very little. Yeah, but playing the game, I bet it made you want to read different things about it. And you forget shit like that that you don't go back and review. You know, like when I was a kid, my dad gave me, not against my wishes, I wanted one of these. He gave me a globe. I was like 7 or 8 years old. I forget which one. We were living in Alabama at the time. And he gave me a globe. And it was really cool because it had the mountains in relief. So, you know, you could feel the globe and you could tell where the mountains were and shit like that. Um, and There's no internet back then or anything like that. So I knew that thing backwards and forwards. Knew all the capitals of the countries and all that shit. My dad was always into stuff like that. He had all kinds of books on maps and flags and shit like that. And I knew all that stuff. But it's stuff that I don't look at anymore. So you end up forgetting, you know. Um, it's just things you don't ever look at. You don't review. You know, like if somebody said, "Hey, what's the capital of Madagascar?" I'd have to think, "Oh, that's Antananarivo, isn't it?" But why would I know that? Because shit, I hadn't looked at that since I was 9 years old. So you know, I think there's a finite amount of information your brain can handle. As you remember new things as you're required to by life in general, work, whatever. There's something you've forgotten that you don't know about yet until you try to recall it. Have you seen that Italian village that's made by one of the 3D printers? They make a whole Italian village. It's freaking gorgeous. It's like it has removable buildings, and I think it's about the. I don't know that it's 2x4, but I think it's 2x3, and there's a little church and a little. I'm like, that's that's going to be my goal maybe one day is to work my way up to get that. But I'm like I gotta earn that shit. I gotta like be really comfortable just jumping in. The last thing you want to do is get something like that and be like, I don't know where to start, so you don't do anything with it, you know? But I think it's beautiful. All right, that's not looking bad. And we're gonna have some little diagonal lines on there to make it look like glass, but that's the final step. What company makes the what palette? Red Grass Studios. I've been pretty happy with it. It was gifted to me, and If I was going to pick one up, I wouldn't have picked that one up because I would have gotten one that was available at a store. Hold on. I bought the first one, and it was a red grass one from a store. And then my brother gifted me the version 2. That's what it is. What's my least favorite campaign or battle of World War II? That's an interesting question. Now I'm gonna put a caveat that I haven't on the surface. It looks like I'm not interested in it. Okay, meaning that if I looked into it more, I might actually be interested in it. But on the surface, I'm not interested in it. Well, let's just get the Pacific out of the way. I'm just not interested in the Pacific. I'm just not. No, no disrespect to Australians or other veterans. I just don't think the Japanese are as interesting an adversary as the people of the Crooked Spider. And I really like the Germans and the Russians going at it. I think it is a a match made in hell. Things that I would never consider doing is, I would love to do the French in 1940. But the German tanks, I just don't like German tanks without the little turret basket thing in the back. I mean, the Panzer twos look fine. The threes and fours look weird. They look weird with having that little turret storage thing behind it. I don't care about the early tanks. I don't care about them being gray. I prefer the German tanks being gray. That's why I wouldn't do France. That's the only reason. But it's it's just getting into a new theater, and it just didn't last long enough. It only lasted a couple months. No, it actually lasted less than that, a month or so. So Poland would be cool, but I don't like German tanks with a white cross on them. The Polish stuff's really neat. And heck, there's a manufacturer, the Polish manufacturer, the first to fight makes all the stuff in Polish, all the Polish stuff. So that would be a plus. I think I'm going to go up one little bit more. What else isn't interesting in Europe? Norway. I wouldn't do Norway unless I'm doing naval stuff. That's naval stuff's interesting. Norway, land. Norway. I'm not interested. Not interested in the Low Countries or Denmark or Low Countries or Holland or Belgium or any of that stuff. The Greek campaign doesn't interest me. Um, Even reading about it. So if I'm going to read about stuff in Europe in World War II, I don't really get interested in it if it's a land combat until Barbarossa. Until the beginning of Barbarossa, I'm just not interested. That doesn't mean I'm a junkie for, you know, the Uberpanzers of late 44 and 45, the super tanks and stuff like that. No, I like the standard stuff. I just it just doesn't last long enough to really keep my attention. There's just other things to pay attention to. Um, I'm not really interested in the Vichy French versus the Americans. This doesn't interest me. I think that, and, and there's some things that I would say that I don't think are very interesting, but I'm willing to give it a go. Like, for instance, I would be interested in doing possibly like Americans in Tunisia, just because they have like not yellow crosses. You're batting for the wrong team if you got yellow crosses, yellow stars and stuff like that. And it's a way to make things that are kind of maybe boring on the surface actually look okay. I think Burma might be would be okay, but I'm basically would be starting from scratch. So it might be just one of those like, okay, I want to paint some Japanese vehicles. All right, so I paint them. Now, if I do anything with them, it's something different, but it's a different matter. But I'm just really not much interested in the Pacific stuff. And especially later Pacific, when things start turning into, um, all the U.S. Navy planes get turned into that dark gloss blue. It's just ugly. I don't care that they were good planes. They were. I just find them ugly. I don't. I'm not going to go and build it. I'll probably never build a Hellcat. I just don't like the way they look. Period. Some of the Japanese planes are okay. I just don't. I don't like Hellcats. I don't like anything in that gloss blue. Let's see. Oh, I gotta see what the hell you wrote. I'll make it easier. You get to pick one for the Pacific and one for the European theaters. I'll turn around. I have my phone away from me. Probably shock you, but the Battle of the Bulge doesn't do it for me. I don't love the Battle of the Bulge. It doesn't last long enough. Um, Let me get my Coke and let me think about that. If I had to do the Pacific, I'd probably do Burma. I'd want to read more about it. Well, first of all, one thing I wasn't aware of, and I could be wrong on this, but I think I should read more about Burma on the plane. That's what I should do. I think the Japanese were still launching like offensive stuff in 1945 into Burma, trying to get to India. That makes it appealing. Um, I'd like to know more about the Western Front in 1945. I don't know enough about it. Um, but wargaming is one of the best ways you can learn about shit because it's like, okay, what is this game? All right, you're going to learn about whatever the game is when you're playing it, but it's like, okay, what happened before? All right, what happened afterwards? So you can kind of put it into context. I say things about the Hellcat, and it's like sacrilege. Well, here's the difference between a Hellcat and a Spitfire. Spitfire's an attractive plane. End of story. Oh man, you're very intrigued by the Winter War. We've done a few battles on the Mannerheim Line. Flames of war back. Okay, more in each the theater, the better. I love the look of the 1930s tanks. Pacific is great. I just don't think the Japanese make a good enemy. And it doesn't mean that you're an idiot if you got killed by the Japanese. I'm just saying they don't appeal to me. You know. As an antagonist. I think the Germans are like the perfect antagonist. Generally They're more experienced. They got some neat equipment. Their stuff looks wicked. There was a post the other day about it was on I think on an airplane group, and it was a picture of a Messerschmitt kind of. I think it was a Messerschmitt E, might have been a G or whatever, but it was like at a 3/4 angle. Kind of looking down the nose, kind of like you see the P-40s sometimes, the Flying Tiger P-40s. It was a cool angle, and somebody said beautiful plane, and like Messerschmitts aren't beautiful. They're wicked looking, and they're like antagonistic looking, but they're not an attractive plane the way a buzzard is not an attractive bird. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's ugly. It's just kind of wicked. You don't look at a Stuka, as much as I like Stukas. I don't look at a Stuka and go, "That's a beautiful aircraft." It's not beautiful. It's wicked looking, and maybe that's part of the appeal, that it's wicked looking. But its lines aren't clean enough to be beautiful. Let's put it that way. An A-10 is not a beautiful aircraft. You have a joke for me. Uh-oh. Do I get to hear the punchline, or we got to wait for Kevin to come in? Here we go. No, RF power time class 2 is a time more flying formation. Yeah, I've heard that one before. Yeah. I saw a picture of, that reminds me of a picture I saw recently without even looking for it. Because of all the three branches, Army, Navy, Air Force, the one I know the least about and have the least amount of interest in is the air. I mean, it's not even close. Land is the most interesting. Then there's times where depending on what the theater, the ship stuff is really interesting to me because I grew up on that stuff, and but the air stuff, I'm a lot less interesting, interested in reading it. So I did catch a program on. I think it's on Amazon. I was looking for stuff to watch at lunchtime the other day, and there was it was dated. I mean, it's probably at least 10 years old. This program that was about Tiger 131 at Bovington, and it was like a 45-minute show where the moderator was talking about the Tiger tank and footage of this, that, and the other, and where that one came from, and all this kind of stuff. And he was sponsored by a company, I want to say it's called Atlas, that that makes die-cast models in this scale. And it's like, hey, you can get a model of this or whatever, and it's made exactly. They talked about Michael Whitman. And they made this. Here's this reproduction Tiger 1 that was, with the markings of, and it looks exactly like Whitman's Tiger, and the whole thing is in Panzer Gray, and I'm like, you guys missed the obvious, and it wasn't a YouTube thing, so I couldn't post a comment. I'm sure I wouldn't have been the first one to post that, but no tigers in Germany in Normandy were painted gray. Pretty obvious thing there. When you miss something like that, it just puts into doubt if anything else you're telling me is true. Okay, I love this back window. I don't like these as much. Now, why don't I like them as much? Probably because I need a little bit more color on it. Yeah, I'm painting for fun, and I'm not painting on a time frame. Not this. I got to get this done today for the. Nope. It'll get done when it gets done, and if it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. I'm just get on here, run my mouth, hang out with you folks, and we'll see what happens. Let's just see what happens. That's way too bright, but we can dull that down a little bit. Yeah, that's good. So I moved to the house, and one of the things that I actually bought for myself was I got around to getting the new Xbox that had been out for, I don't know, since COVID or whatever. They weren't available. And the problem with it is it runs so much smoother than the old one that you can't ever play the old one anymore. But you have access to all the old games and stuff, which I don't have a ton of, but I did port some of them over, and it's funny how quick you forget how to play certain things, even though you were like pretty good at them at the time. And it's just something to do on the side. I'm not very interested in playing the computer games. It just like takes too much. I don't. I'm not even sure why. I don't know. I just can't get into them like I used to. I think 40 millimeter fries versus 30 millimeter. That's a big enough base for sword and shield miniatures and 15 millimeter. Yeah, absolutely. You could get 8 guys on there pretty easily. Come here for the banter. It's a lot of chatting with like-minded folks. Yeah, you can't talk about people in the real world about tanks and shit like that. Nobody cares about that stuff. I'm going to do a plane model at some point, and I think it should be a P-40 by rights. It should be my first plane. It was the first model I built as a kid. So, and I have a. It's probably my favorite American plane. Pretty sure. Doesn't matter if it's not the best one. It's irrelevant. Good morning, Marcus. Life in the big city. What scale? Of 72nd, of course. I know you like 148 scale. I never liked that scale. I didn't grow up with that scale. So, I'm 172nd all the way. I was in. Where did I go in? Or was it a dream that I had? I don't know what it was. Oh, you know what I was thinking of? How did 135th scale even come about? I mean, why 135? I built my share of 135th scale models. Or I started my share of 135th scale models. I built a few I built 10 and started, 40. You're visiting your hometown in Virginia for the holidays. You're stuck in my scale, to be honest, as model kits go. The only one I am more fluid with is ships. 1/48 for planes, 1/35 vehicles, tanks, 1/700 or 1/350 for ships. Yeah, I mean, if there wasn't a viable scale for aircraft, I don't like 1/44th for aircraft either. I like 1/72nd. That's what I grew up with. You know, that's why I do this scale. I grew up with this. You know, I would do 1/48 scale. If I had to do another scale that had to be bigger than this one, I would do 1/48. I wouldn't do 1/56. I wouldn't do 28 millimeter World War II. I'd do 1/48. Because there's a lot of, I left World War II for 20 years, and the next thing you know, Tamiya comes out with freaking 48 scale tanks and shit like that. I'm like, wow, where'd this come from? Of course, those cost as much as the 1/35th scale ones used to. I'm just kind of putzing around here without really a plan, and I may just not tinker with this anymore because sometimes less is more. Less is good enough. Less is never more. It's just good enough. Like that person a long time ago that said, talking about mixing, about what colors make up something else. It's like white is all colors. Really? Try mixing all my colors and getting white. I dare you. I don't deal with abstract shit. Duty calls. They have 1/35th scale planes? I didn't know that. Yep, I am happier just putzing around. As long as I'm doing something. You want a close up? Well, it's not completely finished. Let's see here. It's the freaking headlights that I love, man. The headlights look fucking awesome. I'm going to try to keep it simple like this. And maybe do some little diagonal lines on it, really small and white, and call it a day. But it needs to look consistent with the headlight look. I don't want the windshield to be super like blue, cartoony, and then the headlights, even though they are cartoony, they're not blue cartoony. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Let's just do another one. Let's just do them all consistent. I mean, you don't know how good these things are going to turn out until you end up sealing them and then putting them on the stand, and then you're like, oh, this little T70 does look pretty good, even though it looked like it was just kind of boring and shit. All right, back to now. If I had any brains, I would find a color that was already this one and not mix it. But that's just not like me. I'm used to just kind of. I always called this method of painting blending. I'm blending here. I'm not blending on the tank. Technically it's layering, but I always called it blending, and I called it for so many years that it's hard to kind of get that out of my vocabulary. The same way that we called what you guys call Games Workshop, I used to call Citadel for the longest time, and it took me many, many years to de to not call them that anymore. Well, one thing I will say for Plastic Soldier Company is all of their stuff is really crisp, really really crisp, easy to paint, paints well. Um, you don't have to fiddle fuck around doing a bunch of suspension. You know the guy who creates the models isn't a sadist like some of those Eschi models where you're trying to put all these leaf springs and they don't. It's not that the stuff is finicky. It's the stuff doesn't fit. You know, and you don't have to fool with all that stuff. You know, that stuff is finicky, and then it's liable to get damaged just in regular use, even with on a stand. So, I'd rather them be a little bit more robust. You said Stuka, and I thought of, oh, let me reread that Stuka pilot book. But I'm like, it's just full of fucking Nazi propaganda. Well, I don't know if there's Nazi propaganda in there, but I'm sure there is. But the guy was like a devoted Nazi. No matter how badass he was. You know, he didn't drink alcohol, right? He just drank milk. So, you know, like a Nazi that drinks milk. Fuck you. Yeah, that's screw you guys. I don't know. Now I'm painting it's just black and it looks better. Well, we got to get to this stage anyway, so we'll make a decision. Same thing happened to Opal Blitz. I don't know how the Opal Blitz is going to turn out. And then they were done with them. I'm like, man, these things look pretty darn good. Let's build some more. And I had these Airfix. Well, actually, they were MPCs for me for probably 35 years before I put any of them together. And the running gear on this is very finicky. Meaning, it's not that it's finicky. It's just not very durable. So you gotta be careful with them, or you're gonna be repairing them. EMS of Trade Noble Knight. PSC stuff designed for the wargamer. I've seen some really super detailed models, but you won't find them on my table. Yeah, no, I think PSC is perfect, honestly. Want to get the last success from Operational Studies Group Library of Napoleonic Battles. It covers the entire 1809 Danube campaign, including Aspern, Essling, and Wagram. Super rare, too. I just wouldn't even know where to begin reading stuff like that. I think I should just go watch that Napoleon movie. If I'm intrigued and learn more about Napoleonics, I think that's what I'll do. What do you think? Think it'll make me want to read more about Napoleonics? Needs some opinions, fine chaps, tone 15 millimeter, 10 mil World War II. When you go with your jumping period? I thought you weren't going to do miniatures anymore. Stick to board games. I wouldn't do 10. I wouldn't do 10, not because of the size. The size is fine. Just availability of manufacturers. I just wouldn't do 10. I wouldn't do 12. 6 is okay, but the infantry looks like crap, Warlord games, they're the ones that do the funky scales, right? They do the 13 and a half millimeters or whatever. They've been around long enough now. Have they developed a habit of not supporting their own rules? Like, let's make, American Civil War, which they do American Civil War. I think that's who it is. It's not Victrix or something. I get all those plastic manufacturers mixed up together. Victrix, Warlord Games, and there's a couple other ones. But anyways, the folks that do the ACW and the weird scale and the in-between scale, the figures look good. But, you know, you got to flesh out all the lines before you end up starting to paint a bunch of stuff. And it's like, no, we decided not to do any canon, you know, or something like that. They don't have a habit of doing shit like that, do they? That lead manufacturer, lead, I'll always call it lead. Who's the people? The people that are from Scotland. Zyston. Zyston did that for the longest time. They came out with Roman legionnaires, Roman Polybian legionnaires, and like they had no cavalry for like freaking 7 or 8 years or something like that. And they're beautiful figures. PSC, I mean not PSC. Zyston are beautiful figures, but they're huge. And you know, Romans shouldn't be huge. You know, just because they took over, you know, a huge chunk of the world doesn't mean they were really big folks. You know. That's Warlord Games, but those epic scale miniatures are not my liking. You're shoehorned into basing them a certain way, and honestly, I'd rather just do 15 millimeter. So after this, what should I do after this? I got the SU-76 to do, sixes to do. I got some KVs. I got some JS2s to do. I got a lot of Soviet stuff left to do. Honestly, I could probably game in 1/35th scale. But I like the game scale and the vehicles to be 1-to-1 if possible. So you don't have a situation like that rule set, what is it, Battleground or something like that? The one by Easy 8, where you know you can only throw grenades like 6 inches away or 4 inches or something like that. So the ground is really compressed. But yet you can't stack guys close enough to be that. You know, if you put figures, if you can only throw a grenade 4 inches away and you're using 28 millimeter figures, and you can only stack them base to base, then really each person's about 10 feet away from each other when they're touching. Or maybe even farther away than that. SU-76. That way we get to see some crew as well. Yeah, I gotta paint the crew. Which I'm not afraid of painting crew figures. I think my figures look better than my vehicles, and I'm happy with my vehicles, so I got a lot more experience painting figures. A lot more. But they also take longer to do. This is a pain. This is a pain in the ass to paint this without any of this flow aid. Especially after I've dry brushed it. Dry brushing invariably is going to make this surface rougher. The last thing you need to do is just have this brush catch on shit. I think I need to make sure somebody's awake. Although I think they already are. Let's rinse this and I will be right back. More PSC. Only question remains: who's more attractive? Areas tough one for me. Yeah, I like the Starlight Girl better. It's got a cuter face. Although I'm not a huge fan of super dark eyes, so you know, both, none. Been mixing Victrix 12mm with Pendragon where there are gaps in the Victrix range. Victrix seem to be expanding quickly though. Any of those have crap plastic? You know, plastic that's really brittle? Like the PSC plastic is amazing. And so is the S model plastic. The PSC plastic almost seems like it's lubed. I don't know. It's just very easy to work with. The PSC and the S model stuff is just a pleasure to work with. The Cat Roger, welcome. I don't know that I like it better with the windshield on it. Just having it solid black is kind of, I don't know. Let's do something. Let's do something I never do. Get the darkest gray I've got. That'd be German gray. See what this looks like. Adding a little bit too much of the flow weight on the other paint just kind of made it a little transparent. I'm just not taking this seriously enough. I'm just kind of putzing around. Having a good time doing it, but Just doing what everybody else seems to do is, pick a color instead of modifying every single color. Let me just pick this and see what happens. So I don't know if you guys were around when I said this earlier, but the whole famous thing is that the Soviets used diesel fuel in their tanks and stuff like that. But these trucks, these are actually gas powered. So they had to have both. Both? They had to have both fuel sources. Look, the Flames of War, Desert Basing article. It was a great help. Yeah, I don't care for the game, but they have a lot of really good resources, especially like on unit histories and stuff like that. At least it gives you like a really good starting point to kind of like do like a deep dive into it. That stuff's really well done. Most vehicles work well enough for what I'm looking for. Few vehicles and guns for COC. I don't remember what that is. The infantry are noticeably different, but I'm only using individually. And there's that damn heart again. That didn't used to be there. And then they put that heart, and it's all the way. If it was all the way in the top left, then it wouldn't cover anything unless you're a slacker and waited a long time to read it. It wouldn't be in the way of anything. Here's a question for you, Nordic and other folks. What manufacturer would you just never use? Is there a manufacturer out there that just like you just don't care for their products? For models, it was Lindbergh. Lindbergh stuff was just crap. Especially their scales were, if you did like naval models, like the Lindbergh is like, okay, let's see how big of a model we can get in the box. 570th scale for the battleship Missouri or something like that. In the American stuff, meaning Monogram and Revell, as a general rule growing up, their stuff wasn't very good either. Although I'm pretty sure the first model I built was that Snap Tight I think it was a Monogram. It was a Monogram P40. But, I was a 10-year-old snotling. What did I know? That heart is a pain in the ass. I'm glad everybody's experiencing that. I thought it was just me. Okay, so there's nothing I can do about it then. Okay. Individually based for Victrix. Find marriage not age well, too full of bad cast makes you question where the quality control is for the company. That's almost every place has quality control issues now. Everybody's asleep at the wheel. They're on their phones. Instead of being on the wheel, they're on their phones. Jeffrey posted a bunch of pictures. Snow in Aberdeen. That's beautiful. I can't. It's the sky. I can't deal with that dreary sky every day, Jeffrey. Everything else is beautiful. I hope I don't have gray skies where I'm going. If I do, I'll just have some whiskey and forget about it. It's better than a day of work. I'm spoiled living at the Sunshine State where most days are sunny. It's going to be another sunny one today, looks like. Western Europe, British. 51st Highland Division Campaign, Netherlands and Germany. You know, I haven't seen somebody in a long time, and it used to be a lot more prevalent when I was doing 1/35th scale modeling. People doing British vehicles with a Mickey Mouse camo. And I think it looks really good. I think the Mickey Mouse looks really good. But I don't know if that was a thing where that was only used by a certain couple of units. You know, one of the U.S. units that was using tanks in Normandy with camouflage used like that black overspray, and that was the 2nd Armored Division. I don't know whether they did it on all their vehicles, but I think that looks pretty good too. Of course, if I remember correctly, they wouldn't have stars on the vehicle, so it's like you gain a cool camouflage, but you lose having any kind of stars on the side, which, you know, it wouldn't work. The whole point is to disrupt, you know, the view of the vehicle. If you got this glaring white star on the side of the vehicle, it kind of defeats the purpose altogether. I have some Blue Moon stuff, but it's apparently a different sculptor, and the Blue Moon stuff I have is really good. The Renaissance range stuff. The Landsknecht. British 7th Armored Division and 56th Infantry Division conducted a major offensive north along the coast, road to Salerno, and retook this the pass turn. It's quite mild until today. We had bright skies and a lot of nacreous. I wasn't expecting to learn that word today. Or mother of pearl clouds in a few days. Okay. Looks beautiful. Scotland. I'd like to go to Scotland. Do they have scotch there? Yes, but it's just called whiskey. I like scotch. That's when you know you've turned into an old person. You drink scotch. It's low on sweetness, so I don't feel like crap the next day. But it is an acquired taste. I feel like if you drink scotch somewhere in your house, you have to have one of those little leather chairs. You know, the ones with like the little stamp things on it. I don't have one of those. I don't think it'd go with the decor here, but All right, now I don't know that I like this one that I did first. I don't know that I do. Well, let's just do another one. Yeah, I don't know that I do like how that turned out. I've seen people do the canvas in like a mid, like almost like the fuck it. Let's do a canvas. Let's do a canvas. The kicker, of course, is how do you grab this? I think I'm going to use a suggestion that Nordic would probably have. And use some stickum. That should work fine. Okay. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do a canvas. Look at it. I would use, well, this is already in this color of the stand, so I don't want something exactly like that, which is like, that's, I believe, called U.S. Field Drab. What color is this one? English Uniform? I'm going to use English Uniform, and we're going to mix some black into it. That's what she said. Yeah, I got lots of this stuff now. And I'll probably paint the inside, but I'm not going to paint the top of the inside. That's like, you know, do I not have anything to do? I remember building models of the kids as a kid. One of the most annoying things, you know, as a kid who's like, you know, 10 to 15 years old, something like that. They want you to, if you're building an aircraft, the first thing they want you to do is paint parts on a sprue, which, you know, doesn't work for me, and or paint it as you're building the cockpit. I'm like, I don't give a shit about the cockpit if I'm building an aircraft, you know? You go put your cockpit somewhere else. Go find someone else with a cockpit. Germans can use, just look at pictures. Yeah, I just decided to do like a dark gray on mine, just because I think it looks better. If I was doing a yellow truck or a Dunkelgelb truck, I wouldn't use this color. I'd use something similar to what I'm about to use. Oh, Snapdragon. We want to use black, not dark gray. I mean, dark gray would probably work too, but then I'd be like, all right, that looks good. Let me try to replace it. And it, you know, I'd be trying to replace it with using black and it wouldn't look the same. All right, let's, this is actually probably something I could use the wet palette for. We're just going to run this without the wet palette. Let's see what happens. Look, Ma, no hands. We're just going to kind of do this as a wet, dry brush. And then we'll detail as needed. I always like to test one thing before I get started, and then have to redo a bunch of things. I don't want a lot of things in my collection that look like they were painted by different folks. You need to embrace whatever painting style it is that you have and just roll with it. Somewhere cockpits are gathering and plotting how to get revenge upon you for the horrendous wound you inflicted upon them. Yes. That's the name of a movie. A really bad 80s movie. Porky's 5, Revenge of the Cockpits. In Soviet Russia, cockpit gets in you, comrade. That's right. You know what is a really good Soviet vehicle? Good looking Soviet vehicle? Good Soviet vehicle. No, there's good looking Soviet vehicle. That's the Stalinist tractors. I think that's the ones, the big ones. The ones that are square, they have the front of them that looks kind of like a Mack truck. I think they're a good looking vehicle. That's the ones you completely tracked. We don't need wheels. That's a good looking vehicle. I had some micro armor. I always thought they were really cute. Now those Cosmolets things, yeah, those are ugly as shit. Although my least favorite Soviet vehicle of all time, easily, is not something you would think of, is those damn Aerosans that they had. Those like ski vehicles with a propeller. Those things are just ugly as shit. I don't care that they were useful in the snow. They just look stupid. Nothing worse than being killed by a communist in a stupid vehicle. All right, we need to bring this up. Lots more. There we go. I'm going to try painting it this way because if this is successful, it's a pretty easy way to do it. And sometimes I just need to stop making things so difficult for myself. Yeah, I think if we just keep doing this and just bring it up, we should be fine. Bring it on up. falling asleep, huh? In Soviet Russia, sleep falls on you. Okay, man, you too. Yeah, you should be. I should be on every day. Um, Notice how I said that. I should be on every day. Especially because when I get back, roll right into work hell for sure. Oh, this is looking good. Now, the secret to dry brushing is just don't do it once and then think it's done. Oh, it doesn't look very good. Yeah, well, you just don't have any depth. And it's funny, I haven't dry brushed really on any of my 15 millimeter figures in 20 years, other than chainmail. Let's just keep bringing that up. And I'm going to use white because it looks faded. Just a little bit. We don't need very much. Only if sleep is attractive and a female comrade. Man, stay thirsty, my friend. In using new lingo. I like this because it gives the appearance that it's dried out, which is exactly what would happen. This material would get bleached by the sun and maybe one little bit more white, and that's it. Let's not go crazy. Which one's done? Let's do the one that has the windows on it. And see how that looks. The vehicle actually looks a lot better with a tarp on it than not. Looks a little less shitty. Let's see. I feel like I need to bring it up a little bit more. So I think that's probably how we're going to do them. Thanks for the inspiration to go ahead and just get up off my ass and do one of them. No, not that I was scared, but there's a catalyst. So I'm probably going to make them removable, just so I can have a variety of them. So I don't think I need to paint the inside of them. It's dark as shit in there. So, and they fit on there pretty well without scraping the crap out of everything. So I think they look pretty good. It's a better looking vehicle with it on it. I think so. So, all right, folks. Well, we're going to call this one a wrap. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you later.